Hello, everybody. This is Colin. I'm sure most of you know me who are listening to this right now, but for introductory sake, my name is Colin, and this is my podcast. My podcast does not currently have a name. This is my very first episode. It's an introductory episode, and there's a theme to this episode, and the theme is turning thoughts into action. And the reason why that is the theme is because this podcast has forever been a thought and I have yet to take action. Actually, let me retract that. Last year in 2020, with the help of a friend, thank you, Cody, we tried to get a podcast started and get it off the ground. We filmed multiple episodes and I just never put it out there, um, which is why I'm here making an effort to turn my thought into action. And I've actually I love podcasts. I've had really positive experiences with podcasts. I've been on a couple myself, and the most influential one that I have been on was with my friend Ryan Miller. Thank you, Ryan, for having me on as a guest. And I freaking loved it. And I got an opportunity to share my story and help put my message out there and give a sense of who I am and just being vulnerable, open, and relatable. It was just so fulfilling for myself. And that was in the fall of 2019. And as I mentioned, that transformed into early 2020, trying to get a podcast started with the help of Cody and having filmed a few episodes. And Ryan also, we did an episode with Ryan that he put out on his platform. And generated some momentum and I just did not run with it. And it's not me shaming myself, it's just acknowledging what is and what has brought me to this point and sitting here on the couch in my office in my house in the middle of the day filming this introductory episode. And I couldn't be more proud of myself to do this and to turn my thought of starting a podcast and wanting to do a podcast instead of always feeling like on the outside looking in and having this victim mentality about it, that I just decided to say, you know what, we're going to take action on it. So here we are filming this, and if you're here listening, I really appreciate you taking your time to listen to this, as this is the first installment of many to come, and I could not be more excited about it. So the theme of the episode is turning your thoughts into action. And oftentimes is the hardest part. I know it is for me. For myself, I'm someone who loves to take in information. I love to learn. I love to read books or listen to books, listen to podcasts, people that I look up to and admire, and really just this idea of growing and constantly wanting to grow and learn. But you can take in as much information and think of as many things as you want, but if you're not taking action, you're not moving yourself forward. You're not moving the needle closer to where you really want to be. And that's where disappointment can set in. If you're constantly just thinking about, I should do this or I should do that, I want to do this, I want to be that, I want to act like this, but that's the extent of what you do, there's so much more room for you to grow. And the way that you grow is to just start taking action. I think one of my favorite phrases that I've heard uh, through a company called The Strong Coach is taking messy action. And what messy action is just start, just do it. And for me, right now, this episode is my messy action because I know that I'm going to ultimately not be satisfied in this episode, but it needs to happen. I need to take this messy action. I need to do it and I need to put it out there because it's what I want to do. And the more that, for this specific example, the more that I think about wanting to do a podcast and just not doing it, the more I get down on myself. And ultimately, I had to take that responsibility. And to take that responsibility, it's a tough pill to swallow sometimes, but understand that you're making, and let me rephrase that. I needed to understand I was making the active choice to not do this podcast. I was coming up with, I don't have enough time. I have a baby now and this and that. It's just, I just didn't prioritize it. And that's what it came down to. And I needed to recognize that. I needed to accept the responsibility for that. And taking that messy action is sometimes the hardest step because of the fact that your thoughts are going to be, well, gosh, it's not perfect. Well, perfect doesn't exist. And that's also a hard thing to accept. But perfectionism is an excuse to not do something. And I don't want to use it as an excuse because perfectionism is something that can be hard to combat, but it's simple when you think about it because it's just accepting the fact that perfect doesn't exist. And in this example, the action that you need to take and that to get your journey started is any action. Any action that is different than what you're doing right now is putting yourself in a direction because anything is better than nothing. Something is better than nothing, however you want to phrase it. And the more that you just sit there and think about it, the more that self doubt creeps in. The more doubt, uh, the more you just sit there and demean yourself for not doing something. And when I say something is simple, it's important to recognize that simple doesn't mean easy. Simple is challenging, but simple means that it doesn't have complexity to it. It lacks complexity. For me, the simplicity of starting this podcast was I already had the app on my phone. I've had it on my phone for over a year now. It's called Anchor. It's just a matter of sitting down, opening the app, and just starting to talk. Literally, that's what I did. And I just made the choice that I was going to do it. And for many of you guys out there that are looking for change, that are looking for a certain result, it's not the result that you should focus on, it's the process. And the process is the action. Think about it in a reverse engineering style. Think about the result that you want. If you know the result that you want, then work backwards from there. What's going to get you there? What's the first step that you can take? Let's think of an example, right? Um, this is the first one that popped in my head. Hydration is a big thing for many of you guys that know me working in the health and fitness sphere. Like hydration is something that I recommend everybody to focus on. And it's hard for a lot of people to drink water. It's not that drinking water is hard, it's the action that sets you up for it. So the first step that you need to take is just get a glass out and fill it with water. And for many people, it's about starting hydration earlier on in the day. So, what I personally do and what I suggest to a lot of people is before you go to bed at night, fill up a glass of water, put it on your nightstand, and guess what? It's right there in your face when you get up. And even if you have to take it to the extent that you're going to drink it before you stand up from getting out of bed, do it. And that's the action that needs to be taken. Like it can literally, it went from I need to drink more water. And you can think about needing to drink more water day in and day out, but unless you take action on it, you're not going to see the benefit from it. And working backwards from there, okay, I need to drink more water. What do you need to drink water? You need a glass and you need water. Fill it up. It really can be that simple. But again, simple doesn't mean easy. So the more complex things, such as like I want to lose weight, I want to have more confidence, I want to have higher self-esteem. Um, any example like that, it's not as simple as, or excuse me, it's not just as easy as it might seem, but it is simple. And the hardest pill to swallow is that the first action, the first step that you take is not going to be the prettiest, most perfect step. So the first thing you have to do is relinquish the idea that it's going to be easy, relinquish the idea that it's going to be perfect because it's not. In all reality, in order to grow, in order to change, there needs to be challenge. There needs to be discomfort. And it doesn't need to be pain. Some of it might be quote unquote painful, but it's discomfort. it's challenge. And on the other side of that is growth, and you need to keep leaning into it. You need to keep leaning into the discomfort and the challenge. And you know what? You may not be successful 100% of the time, but you don't need to be successful 100% of the time. Change is compounding. Just like money can compound and you gain interest on it, choose that first step or that first action and start creating compounding effects with it. The more that you can do it consistently, the better off you're going to be. So, therefore, it should be easy. It should be something that easily is attainable in the beginning. When you first start off, it does not need to be 10 out of 10 difficult. It needs to be something different than what you have been doing. That's all it needs to be. Turn your thoughts into action. Turn your thoughts into action. What's the first step that you need to take that's going to get you closer to it? And if that's hard to see, what is it that you want? Work backwards from that. So here I am filming this podcast episode, and it's an introductory one. I've already covered turning your thoughts into action. Some of you guys might be thinking, well, what else are you going to be talking about on this podcast? That's a good question. I don't have any specific things, but what I'm going to focus on is personal development, health, fitness, well-being, professional development. I'd love to have guests on here and interview people. I really just love learning from other people, talking to other people. And I really see this avenue as being a place where I can provide value for people. So I'm open to suggestions. If there's something that you would like me to talk about, I'd be more than happy to talk about it, create an episode around it. But what I want to do more importantly along the way is to also share my story and share who I am. Not because I'm this tremendous person or this complete outlier of a person that is so well above other people that they should listen to me, but because I feel that sharing my story is something that I feel is important for myself selfishly, because I feel that I'm comfortable with sharing it. I may not always be as comfortable as I think I am, but again, I'm turning my thought into action and taking this step into gaining the confidence and gaining the comfortability and being vulnerable and sharing my story. I think there's a lot of value in that. I think there's a lot to pick up from it. So I feel like, I'm 30 right now, and the year that I turned 30 was the biggest transformational year of my life. And I'd love to share my story about that, how I got to this point and where I'm at, and how I plan on keep on growing, and how that can relate to you and your life and your specific situation because of principles. So I think that's a good point right there, is that what I'm going to be sharing as principles, something that's practical, that has withstood the test of time, and the method that you use to attack or accomplish that principle can vary by what works for you. So my goal is to arm you with those tools and provide a foundation for you to build from by understanding these principles, and then talking about ways that you can engineer that process for yourself. So a lot of that, like I mentioned before, is going to be focusing on personal and professional development. It's going to be focusing on health, wellness, fitness, and really one of the things that I'm on this journey on is aligning my life in the way that I foresee myself, and my vision and how I carry out my life. But the important thing about aligning things is aligning your decisions with the person that you want to be. And the person that you want to be is your identity. Your identity is created by the roles that you have in your life and the values that you aim to uphold and how you carry out those roles. So, yeah, other than that, I mean, I feel that this podcast is something that has just been on my mind for so long, and all I've done is talked about it. And I recently had a conversation last week with someone. I had gone to get coffee at Bodhi, Bodie Leaf, which is my favorite place to get coffee. And I ran into someone that had this conversation with, and just were catching up, and said that I wanted to start a podcast. And it's something that I had mentioned to this person before, and they said the same thing of that they thought I'd be great at it. And it was just in that moment that I took that conversation and ran with it and said, I'm going to start a podcast. I'm just going to start doing it. So, how I come across decisions like that in my life, and I want to share with you how it provides meaning and how you can find the ways in your life that provide meaning as well. So, at this point, I feel like I've rambled long enough. I feel that I have provided enough context for what this episode, excuse me, not this episode, this podcast is going to be about. Just being open, being vulnerable, sharing my story with you guys, how I've learned from things that have happened in my life, and how those principles can apply to your life as well and help you grow, and for me to add value to your life. So I really appreciate you guys taking the time to listen to this introductory episode. And if you guys have any ideas as far as suggestions, excuse me, of what you guys would like to see from me, topics to talk about, I'm open to any suggestions and would love to create an episode around that. So thank you for taking your time, and I look forward to sharing more with you soon.